如果我们要说美国还有民主精神，就是美国的媒体不会忘记1月6号的暴动。美国坚持民主信仰价值的人不会因为看着整个大局势，美国即将走向川普主义，国会暴动这一群人很可能所主导的共和党力量将赢得2022年的大选，于是就变成整国西瓜党倒下那个方面。美国仍然有媒体会坚持要重现当场的状况，让美国人了解这个国家那一刻它的宪政、它的民主精神是多么的痛。让我们来看当时的纪录片。
What are you gonna do?
Whatever we have to do. What do you think 1776 was?
I never thought that the protesters would actually get through the door, and it was scary.
USA!
It wasn't clear how it was going to end.
Would the United States Capitol Police be prepared to hold back an angry crowd from entering the United States Capitol? Of course, we know in hindsight the answer was no. What we saw take place in an unprecedented way was domestic terrorism.
最难以想象的是，站在风暴正中心的是美国现任总统川普。
The only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that.
On December 19th, President Trump tweeted, quote, Peter Navarro releases 36-page report alleging election fraud, more than sufficient to swing victory to Trump. Big protest in D.C. on January 6th. Be there. Will be wild.
His supporters understood that as the call to action that they've been waiting for since Election Day, who genuinely believed not only that he'd won the election, but that he would remain president by proving that the election was fixed or maybe various other ways to stay in power.
2:20 p.m., Capitol Police struggled to hold their ground.
也就是这个时刻，国会警察局长向国防部求救。
At 2:26 p.m., as the attack was underway, he pleaded with the Pentagon for help, saying, "I'm making an urgent, immediate request for National Guard assistance. I have got to get boots on the ground." But he says he was rebuffed by a Pentagon general out of concern it would not look good to have Guard troops at the Capitol. Today, though, that general at the Pentagon said neither I nor anyone else from DoD denied the deployment of requested personnel. Guard troops arrived at 5:40 p.m., more than 3 hours after the initial request.
事后，国防部说明了国民兵为何姗姗来迟。
The Army says McCarthy ran to Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller for approval. It was granted at 3 p.m. But the D.C. National Guard needed to call in the rest of its guardsmen, and the Guard who'd already deployed needed to go back to the D.C. Armory to pick up riot shields and get briefed on a new, more confrontational mission. Meanwhile, the Capitol descended into violence. Members of Congress sheltered. Insurrectionists fought police.
At that point, many of them walked towards the Senate side of the Capitol, and they were immediately confronted by one police officer.
他是国会警长古德曼，他故意推示威者，将这些人引去追他，保全了参议院，为议员争取时间。
The chamber went into lockdown. Mike Pence was ushered out of the Senate chamber. Most of the Senate was still in the chamber, waiting for their instructions.
At one point, you have a crowd of rioters approaching a doorway, but they're blocked by Capitol Police. It appears as though the officers are going to keep them back. But then, inexplicably, the officers suddenly step aside. The mob begins using objects to crash through the door. Their colleagues behind the doors, which were essentially the last line of defense.
于是他们决定开枪。
Pro-Trump supporter, later identified as Ashley Babbitt, tries to make her way through a window.
There was a shot, was taken to a nearby hospital, and died.
President Trump could stop this with one tweet, but instead he's on Twitter attacking Vice President Pence for refusing to go along with his attempt at a coup.
Hundreds of people at the top of the East Front steps of the Capitol chanting that for quite some time. I heard multiple conversations loudly and publicly, not anything people were trying to hide, discussing what are we going to do with the vice president? We should go in and find the vice president. We should hang the vice president.
Donald Trump put a price on the head of his own vice president. The message was very clear that somehow Pence could overturn the results of the election and hand it to Trump. They believed it.
Around 3 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon, January 6th,
Everybody stay down! Get down!
this shaky video tells the story of shaken nerves.
The House members who were on the first floor of the House had been evacuated already, but there were members in the upstairs gallery part of the chamber, and those members were particularly scared about what would happen.
I saw the Capitol Police locking the doors and starting to stack furniture and barricade us in the chamber. And it was at that point that I realized that we were trapped and that we were going to try to protect ourselves within the chamber.
We had a shelter-in-place order. They told us to use the gas masks that are under the seats.
They broke the glass?
I heard the sound of breaking glass and gunshots ring out. And then the rioters actually start trying to ram the doors down.
I thought I really should call the kids and that I was okay. At one point, my son said, "What do you mean you're okay? I can hear gunshots."
I was frightened that it would be a mass casualty incident, that if they had automatic weapons, they could have killed hundreds of members of Congress.
You want to fight? You better believe you got one!
Across the Capitol, protesters were entering offices. A video posted online shows rioters looking for the House Speaker.
Nancy Pelosi's office is one of the most heavily guarded offices on Capitol Hill. You cannot just walk into Nancy Pelosi's office, but that's exactly what some of these demonstrators did.
There you go, brother.
The rioters even took away the nameplate that is on top of her suite.
Dozens of officers were injured in mob violence like this. Sticks and poles, even American flags raining down on police who were trying to keep the rioters from entering the Capitol.
His initial reaction was not horror, which was almost everybody else's reaction. His initial reaction was to watch the show.
We had an election that was stolen from us, but you have to go home now. We love you. You're very special.
When you're telling your violent supporters that you love them, what kind of message does that send? I mean, it sends a message of approval.
We learned later in the afternoon that the mayor of D.C. had imposed a curfew starting at 6 p.m.
8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night, they came in.
Be kept out of this chamber by thugs, mobs, or threats.
当晚，川普在推特上公布了录影谈话。
To all of my wonderful supporters, I know you are disappointed, but I also want you to know that our incredible journey is only just beginning.